So I am Lauren Bryant. Thank you for joining us this evening for this meeting. Um, I wanted to introduce myself as the project manager for Boston Parks for the Malcolm X project. I also wanted to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and may be posted online for others to be able to view who weren't able to join us tonight. I'm going to pass it off to Chief White Hammond, the Chief of Energy, Environment, and Open Space. And I'll pass it over to you right now, Chief.
Thank you so much. Lauren, I think, thank you for getting us started. I wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge the gravity of this day, that we are exactly 1 year from the day that George Floyd was killed. And I know many of us may have been processing that in different ways throughout the day. I was in conversation with one of my parishioners, and one of the things we were sort of saying is how sacred this day is and becomes is not just about the death of George Floyd, but what we all do in the aftermath and how we continue to shift and change our world to one in which both what happened to him would not happen anymore, but also that all the layers of injustice connected to the reality of life for Black people and people of color in this country begin to shift, begin to change, begin to be made clear. I think it's a good thing that we are having this conversation about Malcolm X Park. I know there are many folks that have a deep connection to this park, myself included. My cousins grew up on Mayfair Street, and so we often walked over to the park, sometimes with hairdos and outfits that I am thankful that there are no pictures of. I was a kid in the 90s, so everybody remembers those really, really horrible bangs that I wore quite often. And I remember seeing Arrested Development perform at the DCR rink. I was trying to find out what summer that was, but in my teenage years. So here we are to talk about this park that means a lot to so many of us, and this opportunity to enhance and redesign, but also honor the heritage of this park and the heritage, particularly of its namesake, Malcolm X. So I know there's some tension. I wanted to begin. I know that Derek, I think you are, I don't know if I see you. Okay, there I go, I see you. I know that you had mentioned you wanted to lift up really quickly the principles of Frederick Law Olmsted. Are you there, Derek? I don't know. I think I see you, but Derek, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Did you want to take a moment? You had I know you had sent some thoughts quickly about the spirit of Olmsted.
Sure.
Was the designer of this park. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I can just say that in addition, blessed as we are to have a park that's not only named for Malcolm X, but is where he lived as a child and where he would have gone to the park as a child, and as a young person. We also are blessed to have a park that at one point in its history of design and redesign, Olmsted and Associates had the contract. And for those who don't know, Frederick Law Olmsted, who grew up in Brookline, is celebrated internationally as the father of American landscape architecture, which is an art. And he, in addition to designing the Emerald Necklace of Boston, of which Franklin Park is the crown jewel, he also designed Central Park in New York City. And during his heyday in the 1880s and 90s, was responsible with a couple of other conservationists in establishing Yosemite National Park and a lot of what are now the national park system. So I just want to say that we, unlike people in a lot of places, have a park that has had since the very beginning the sensibilities, the principles, and the direct imprint of Frederick Law Olmsted on it. And like other cultural and other considerations in the future of this park, we do not, I would say, want to lose we have inherited and what we have in pursuit of what we want and don't want. So I think finally that Olmsted's principles included making sure that a park or a public urban green space would provide urban dwellers, whether they're African Americans today, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, Jewish before, Irish Americans, and in Olmsted's time, middle class, upper middle class, white Victorian suburbanites. A urban park should have all of the elements that move fluidly from one area to another. And we're blessed to have a park that is one time is, we got like a basketball that's like the Rucker in New York. We got a baseball field that's like Jim Rice Field. We have the Pudding Stone outcroppings on the top, which is like Franklin Park and Central Park is beautiful. And we have a grove of trees. And what's really great is that in the years since Olmsted, every time something was added to the park, I don't know if it was by intention or accident, it was actually added appropriately. So when basketball courts came, skating rinks, swimming pools, it all fits together. So I think we need to hold on to Olmsted's principles, which is to make the park reflective of its environs outside of the park, but also within and the culture and the people and the uses, but also to be very well integrated within the park. And I'll leave it at that.
So Lauren, I know you have prepared a presentation, I think, to just provide some context. And did you want to go ahead and share that?
Me too.
Before we go on?
Absolutely. So tonight, what we were hoping to be able to do is obviously introduce everybody that's here from the city side, for everyone to know who's here. We wanted to talk about the neighborhood context and the analysis in terms of the sports and sort of how we look at the greater neighborhood needs as well as the individual park needs. And then also wanted to talk through, like Chief White-Hammond was saying, sort of how did we get to where we are now? What was the process that we went through during park design and the community process? And then obviously the whole reason we're here is to have a discussion tonight to hear, everyone's thoughts. So from the city of Boston, we have Chief White-Hammond. We also have Kyle Robideau, sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly, who is the Chief of Staff for Boston City Council District 7's office, Brady Baca from Councilor Mejia's office, Mark Coleman from the Boston Police Department, Commissioner Ryan Woods from the Parks and Recreation Department, and also Kathy Baker Eclipse, who is the Acting Director of Design and Construction for Boston Parks. Kathy, can I turn that over to you unless Commissioner Woods wanted to say something first?
Nope, all Kathy, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Lauren. I know I may be new to some of you. I've been with the city for over 13 years, so as a project manager, and so I know the city well, and I'm new to this role of the Acting Director of Design and Construction. So I just wanted to take a minute and talk about kind of how we start looking at a site. It starts with developing a construction estimate for the work in order to put in the city budget. But before we even get to that level, we're looking at the neighborhood and how this site that we're studying fits into the neighborhood context of open space. Not any one individual site can meet the needs of the whole community around it, but we really rely on that network of open spaces to meet that demand Parks are limited in size and what they can accommodate. They're limited in physical features, like some of the rock outcroppings about what could happen at one site, given the physical nature of the site. Also limited by proximity or trying to find complementary uses with proximity. On a site that's next to a school, it's really nice to be able to have some of that school use spill out into the park. And I know that's a really important component here at Malcolm X. And also limited by community desire. Like I said, there's a lot of desire, but there's limited space. You know, if the community expresses a desire for us to go in one direction or another, that is something that we take very seriously, but we are looking at the whole of the park system at the whole time. So when we zoom into Roxbury, we can see that we have a pretty good distribution of park sites throughout the neighborhood, and that's something that we're really proud of. We've been working really hard to be able to provide a park to every resident within a 10-minute walk of their house. But a lot of these sites are smaller play lots, which are vitally important to development and to childhood development and providing a passive space for adults to recreate. But it's really those field uses that are limited in Roxbury. So we want to make sure that we're addressing all of the needs in the community with our limited open space. So looking at the fields specifically, we have Madison Park, which is a large recreational facility that's actually owned by the Boston Public Schools Department, but Boston Parks has care and custody of it. That has a couple of soccer fields, but they are overlapping uses with baseball, softball, and football. So they're not 100% devoted to, or even primarily devoted to soccer use. Edna Bino has a small softball component. Jim Rice has a major baseball component, which is great and very actively used. Clifford Playground has softball and baseball, and can overlap. Some larger fields can overlap in those outfields, but that's something that we're also thinking about. Marcella Playground has a large baseball, men's baseball. Crawford Street has that Little League and softball field combined, and Franklin Park has another softball field. So there's not a site that's dedicated 100% to soccer, and we know that this is a growing need not only in Roxbury, but also in the city as a whole. So we're hoping that we're coming into the design process with that baseline of understanding of what's going on in the community, what we're hearing from external park users, league organizers, and bringing that understanding to how we're thinking about what the future of the field might be. So I just wanted to do a little place setting about that before we dive into the details of how we got to where we are with the rest of the park.
Is it possible that Alfreda Harris can speak?
So I think, yeah, we're about to open it up. Is there any more context setting like that needs to be put out there before? Because I think, yeah, before folks jump in.
Yeah, we were going to do a quick, this is how we got to where we are, and how, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was just going to say, this is how we entered the design process, with this understanding of the context that Malcolm X is in, and the details specifically of Malcolm X, Lauren's going to get into.
Absolutely. We just wanted to give a quick overview for everyone, because I know that speaking to a lot of different people the last few weeks, not everyone was able to join us at our community meetings, which is understandable. There's a lot going on lately. So we did want to just give a quick overview as to what our process was and how we got to where we are, just to keep everyone in the loop. So this project is a full park renovation project. It includes playground, water play courts, natural areas, entrances, and athletic fields. And to Derek's point, part of what's great, one of the things, because there's a lot of them, that's great about Malcolm X Park is exactly what you said about how everything is situated in the park and how it really respects the nature and the natural history of the park. And it's something that we talked about early on, is that the programmatic elements really work where they are. The field makes sense where it is. The basketball courts make sense where they are. We're not talking about, you know, a major overhaul of where components are. It's really upgrading everything, bringing it up to modern standards, making sure pathways are ADA accessible. So we're not looking at major changes in terms of shifting program elements around the park, because there's no need, because like Derek said, it works as it is with circulation. It works with all of those things. It's just really upgrading. So it's a $7.7 million project. We started off the project meeting with a group that were community partners. It was a group that we got names. I reached out. It's not our standard process, but I really wanted to try to make sure that we got the community involved early on. So I reached out to Commissioner Woods, to our ONS rep at the time, who has moved to a different position, and to, at the time, Councilor Janey's office, to say, who are the people in the community we really need to get on board up front. So we had that meeting in May of 2020, got a lot of really good feedback about how we can reach out to people in the neighborhood, especially during COVID. We have had 3 additional community meetings that were via Zoom due to COVID. But we did have an on-site public workshop so that we could meet people where they were when they were using the park. We also met with the community partnership group again during that process. After the 3rd community meeting that we had in January, we were finalizing the design based on input from the community and also the survey that we did, which I'll talk about in a second. And we started the construction document process. The current schedule is to complete construction documents and bid the project in June or July, with construction starting this summer and about a year of construction. I'm sorry, I'm also letting people into the waiting room. And as part of our outreach with those 3 meetings, all of the workshops were advertised via social media, and yard signs were printed and posted in the park. The signs were printed in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Somali. In addition, we mailed over 500 postcards out to advertise each of the meetings, not just the first one, to the residences that were within approximately 1,000 feet of the park. I also luckily have had so many people that have reached out. I have a mailing list of about 750 emails that I've also reached out to for every meeting. In addition, at those meetings, we had interpreters for all languages, and at the public workshop in person as well. During the process, we also had 2 online surveys, also available in those 4 languages. The first survey had over 700 respondents, which was fantastic. We were so very excited about that. And the second one had over 150 responses to that one. Then once we had finalized the design, the community really was excited about interpretive signage and telling stories within the park. So we started a separate process to think about what could be on that interpretive signage, or knowing that the Arts Commission is potentially going to do some murals here, you know, what the community feels would be helpful to have or interesting to have on those murals. So what we did was we hired 3 local community liaisons to help us try to gather input on history and themes for art. We had a meeting on May 11th to talk about that. And there was concern that came up at that meeting regarding the softball and removal of softball, because it was in one of the images on the field that we had. And there was a concern that that was happening. And so at that meeting, I was requested to set up a meeting with people who were concerned and folks at the city. And that's what brings us here tonight. So I also wanted people to know, because people were asking, like, did you guys talk about this at every meeting? So at the first meeting, we didn't talk about the field because it wasn't part of the scope. There had been work done, I think it was like 2016, Kathy can correct me if I'm wrong, just some field repairs. So we did not have that as part of the scope, but we heard at the first meeting really loud and clear, the community really wanted us to look at the field as part of the scope. So I went back to the commissioner. So this is what we showed at the first meeting, which didn't have the field in it at all. Went back to the community, went back to the commissioner and said, you know, people really want us to look at the field. What can we do? So even though we didn't have money for construction, we said, let's pay the money to design it, so that at least, even if we can get money down the road, we're designing it as part of the field or as part of the project, so it makes sense with the rest of the park. So that's what we told everybody at the second meeting, is that we're going to design it. It may not be built at the same time, but we want to get your input so that when we are ready for it, we have it. So here we just sort of talked about the future of it. We also looked at how the field was currently used and permitted. We did some polls to ask people what they wanted to see, what the concerns were. And we really heard that turf conditions were a problem. Shade was also very important, and lighting was third in the list of what people thought was most important. So then in between those two meetings, Commissioner Woods worked to help secure a donation, which would help us to be able to do the field project all in one together. So at the third meeting, we announced that, and we talked about the design of the field in greater detail so that we could show people what was happening. So this was from that third presentation, and these are all on our project website, as well as the videos of the presentations, so people can see those. So here we talked about this being a multi-use synthetic field. We talked about some of the concerns that we heard. And then we also talked about that this would be a high school. The yellow would be a high school soccer. The blue lines would be 2 U12 youth soccer. The purple is ultimate frisbee, and the orange is kickball. And I think what happened is a lot of people saw this kickball diamond and thought it was softball. And so even though they were labeled and we talked about it at that meeting, I think that people seeing this online saw that softball. And so I think that's part of where that concern came from. So of that misunderstanding. And also the fact that it was something that was added throughout the project. We can see how if somebody had come to the first meeting and they didn't come to the third meeting, they may not have seen that. And that's why we're here tonight, because we want to make sure that we can talk through that for people who missed that information and are concerned now. Does that help for an overview, Chief White-Hammond?
Yeah, so I think, I know Alfreda wanted to jump in. I think Jose, who had reached out to me, also wanted to raise some concerns. So I think that does give us a sort of overview. So everybody, I know some people have been to all meetings, some people have been to fewer meetings. So Jose, did you want to go ahead and add some perspective? And
I do, but I'll wait for after Ms. Harris, because she raised her hand before I.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. As someone who has been involved with Washington Park long before it became Malcolm X Park, and the Washington Park Community Center long before it became the Shelburne Community Center. So I've been around for a while in terms of Washington Park. Chief, I just want to congratulate you on your new assignment, and I wish you most and the best
Ms.
of
Harris,
luck.
I remember you since
I'm sure you do.
not that you were young then and you still are now, but I remember you when it was still Washington Park. So
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for your
So by saying that, I just wanted to let everyone know how long I have been involved. Right now, I am the chairperson of the John Shelburne Community Council, Inc. I opened the building in 1972 as its first director. Washington Park is a wonderful park. The unfortunate part about it is that it's in a residential area, and that there has been some problems in regards to softball and spectators. I'd like to say in the design of this particular park, what has been missing for a long time has been activities for young people between the ages of 10 and maybe 16 who do not play basketball. And although I'm a basketball coach and have been for years and love the game of basketball, I think our kids deserve to be involved in some other sports beyond basketball. And Washington Park, beyond that right now, doesn't provide that. The other point of it is that the senior citizen program that we do run in the Shelburne Center, and also the seniors over at St. Joseph's, has really not had a chance to enjoy the park. The new design, as Norman talked about, provides for a walking track around the field, which, the seniors have been basically locked inside all the time, not able to really get out and, express themselves, and to be able to sit on a bench in the shade and enjoy their community. That's just a little off the top of what I want to say, because I know there are other people who want to speak as well. But my concern is that I think, it's not that we don't like softball, because I played softball, but I also think maybe part of the solution to some of this problem is that the Parks and Recreation Department, from which I retired as the assistant commissioner. So as you know, I have a lot of knowledge in regards to the city of Boston, and especially in regards to the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. So my basic thought is that if it's a possibility, which I think there should be, somewhere where the Parks Department can permit this organization to maybe play in one of the other softball fields. So that's it for me right now. If there's something I need to jump back in on, I hope that I'll be able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could jump in, Chief. There's just a couple of things I want to, can everyone hear me clearly? Sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the park design process, I just want to be very clear that for 2 of the 3 meetings, the softball fields, well, actually, for all 3 meetings, it was never clearly stated that the softball fields were being removed. I went back and rewatched the 3 meetings. Lauren is correct that in the 3rd meeting, an image was utilized showing soccer field overlays, as well as what we later learned was a kickball field. But it was never stated by anyone clearly on that call that there was going to be a removal of the softball field. And so if anyone participated in 2/3 of the community meetings that were on Zoom for design process, the impression that you would have left and that I had was that A, there was either nothing going to be done to the softball fields, or B, that the city was actively seeking recommendations on how to improve the softball field. And not just improve the fields generally, but to extend usage as a natural grass and dirt field. And at one moment, the design firm said that they would be able to suggest improvements to the natural field that would extend its usage, but those improvements were never provided in a subsequent meeting or share. And so in terms of due process, I think for community to fully weigh in on what really is a big change to the fields, I just want to express that I don't think the community has been given that opportunity, particularly when A, it was a late addition in the scope, and B, what was happening was never really clearly articulated, even in the 3rd meeting where the softball fields were introduced. And so I think we need to revisit that entire conversation. I'm also concerned that in May, there were individuals that were reached out who were likely people who would be concerned. And what I think happened was, I'm pretty sure that none of the leagues that play softball on that field were contacted and asked to weigh in. And the response might be, well, Jose, that's because in May, that portion wasn't in the scope. But I'm pretty sure that when it became a part of the scope, those leagues weren't reached out to directly to talk about these significant changes. And I think that was a missed opportunity to really get this right. In addition, I want to add that I still remain concerned about the lack of diversity in consultants. I do think there should have been from the beginning Latinx consultants, particularly where we're talking about possibly changing usage for a large Latinx community. And I've provided names of some people to both Lauren and Mike, and I hope that you all will take the time to reach out and involve whoever you do hire early enough so that they can actually provide value to the Parks Department and to the community and the conversation. The last thing I'll add is I do think that we should think about how we move forward in terms of the stewardship of this park and carrying out a community vision. And what I would propose is that we create some type of a committee that would work on a memorandum of understanding between the very important partners who have roles to play and a big interest in this park. And, you know, that would be BPS, it would be Boston Police Department, DCR, the Shelburne Community Center, Parks and Recreation, the Landmarks Commission, given the historic significance of that field and its usage. You know, I do think, and the community. So, you know, that's something that we probably will not be able to achieve today, but I do think a discussion around an MOU on the future, you know, community-driven vision for usage and responsibility around that park would be a worthwhile document in creating that would help encourage, I think, stewardship in a way that Olmsted would appreciate and that would make us all proud. Thank you so much.
I'd like to just jump back in here. One of the most important things that I didn't hear anybody talk about when you're talking about community is the St. Joseph's Housing Complex, who is actually one crosswalk away from the park. So it's very important to the Shelburne Community Center and also St. Joseph's, who are the residents of that neighborhood, who live less than 50 feet from that park. And I think I see Leah here from St. Joseph's. So I just wanted to make sure that St. Joseph's is not left out of any of this. They're a very, very important piece of this community, and that building, that organization has been there. And so they are the people who live there, and they are the people who are there 24 hours a day. So they're very important to this conversation as well.
I agree. Ms. Harris,
Yes.
I see that Leah has her hand up.
Yes.
So,
Hi, Lauren.
hi, Leah. How are you?
I'm well. Yes, I'll introduce myself. You know me, Lauren. My name is Leah Christie, and I've been a resident of St. Joseph's for the past 52 years. And another one of our St. Joseph's residents is also on here, whose home is directly, her unit is directly on Dale Street, the back of it, directly across the street from this park. And this is our concern, and that we've been talking about in these meetings that we've attended from the beginning about the problems that we have encountered with the softball players and their spectators that we have had to go through on the weekends with the loud music that goes up until 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. We call the police, and Officer Coleman, if he's on here, he knows what I'm talking about, because we have discussed this. I have sent emails to Mayor Walsh, Councilor Janey, Commissioner Gross, never received a response. I did receive it from Commissioner Councilor Janey once she attended the meeting that Miss Harris set up for this problem that we have been going through for the past few years. And as I stated in my email to the commissioner, to Mayor Walsh, to Councilor Janey, that we deserve a little bit of respect around here. We have senior citizens. We have 136 units in St. Joseph's here. We have autistic children living right there near Dale Street. And, you know, any little thing, you know, will upset them. They can't sleep. The children can't sleep at night. You know, and it's very, very disrespectful, very, very frustrating when you are trying to sleep at night and the music is just blasting. You call the police 3-4 times. They never show up. You know, so we are at our wits' ends with this. And you know, what else? And if it wasn't for Ms. Harris bringing all this to the attention of Officer Coleman and, you know, the different Commissioner Ryan, nothing would have ever been addressed. And Andrea, who is also on here, and she can give you more information on it, because as I said, her home is directly on, the back of her home is directly on Dale Street, and she gets the brunt of this. It makes your house shake. That music is so, I don't know what kind of speakers they use, but it makes your house, they go across the street to the liquor store, bring back alcohol. You know, they just have a field day there. It's no respect whatsoever for our residential community here. And that's where the frustration lies. You know, it's fine. Yes, you play softball. You know, you have a good time. When we first moved here, I was on a softball team they had for women at Washington Park. So I understand that. But this is not right. I mean, we're at a time in our lives, especially during this pandemic, you know, where people they're frustrated, they're stressed. We shouldn't have to go through something like this. I mean, and you know, if we can come together to get something going on here, we will appreciate that, because I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. I really am, because this is not right. We don't deserve this. We do not deserve this. So that's what I have to say about it.
This is Andrea. I didn't raise my hand because I'm really bad at Zoom and I don't even know how to click the thing. I don't even see it. But I want to piggyback on what Miss Christie said. We've been fighting with this. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
We've been fighting with this softball league for over 10 years. We've been sending emails everywhere. Even Paul McCaffrey actually probably knows us by our first name. That's how long we've been complaining about this. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they do silly stuff. They know we're complaining. So they drive down the street, blast their music when they get to our yards, then they turn it back down. But they need to know it's not just Dale Street. People on Washington Street are complaining. People on all over the park is complaining. And as far as not putting out information about the meetings, they were everywhere. We even asked Lauren to put them in other places that they missed. So if you wasn't so busy playing softball and drinking, you might have seen one of them signs. I'm tired of it. I hope it becomes a field for the kids. That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Diane Galloway.
Oh, hi. Hi, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Diane.
Hi, everybody. How everybody doing? I just want to say, you know, I mean,
Sorry, Diane, 1 second, real quick. Everybody, it sounds like there's a lot of feedback. If you're not speaking, could you mute so that we can hear Diane? Thank you.
okay, thank you. I'm the director at the Shelburne Community Center. I've been involved with the Shelburne for years. And, you know, I was sitting here and just listening to folks, and it just brought me back to when they did have a real good, mature adult softball league out there. And we didn't face these issues. I mean, the people were very respectful for the community, the surrounding, the Shelburne, and we didn't deal with these issues. And for me, when my staff come in the next day, Monday, after Saturday and Sunday, and they went to bathroom in my doorway, behind my dumpsters, trash all in the park, you know, and I get those calls from the residents from St. Joseph in regards to the music all night long, you know, and something really has to be done because they have no order with their organization. There was an incident at the Shelburne one time and the ambulance couldn't get in there because the cars were so double, triple packed in there, and it's a safety issue. So there's a lot of concerns about that softball league. And yes, that park first, you know, youth friendly on first, and the seniors. I mean, I think the softball, you know, they have taken over the park in a disrespectful way. And that's just my feeling. For all the years I have seen it, and it gets worse and worse every year. And like Liz said, you know, it's tiresome. You know, something has to be done.
Absolutely.
Please. With this new park coming, we have to make sure that, you know, it's community friendly, and the neighbors in the community are safe and they're okay and they enjoy living there. They don't have to be, you know, disrupted by all that loud music and disrespect that goes on in the park across their residency. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I think Mike has his hand raised.
Yes, good. Can you hear me, Lauren?
Yes, we can.
Great. This is Mike Miles. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a resident on Mayfair Street. So Reverend Hammond, I know your family, Kalia, Lael, all of them. I've been there for 25 years.
Yes,
So
good to see
that's
you, Mike.
Indeed. I just want to say that the comments I shared with Lauren, and I have to say that I respect what Jose raised. A lot of the points I think are extremely valid in terms of the community process and the meetings, because I started with the meeting, initial meetings, and the park, the play field was really not in scope. And so as this evolved and the scope got defined, it really changed rapidly. And I don't think there was a lot of opportunity for real debate and dialogue around those changes. And I certainly respect the views that Ms. Harris and the folks from St. Joe's raised. The park has real issues with safety and policing. And I think that's a bigger conversation with BPD and the Parks Department in terms of policing that. But the points that I just want to leave on the call right now are that with regard to having inclusive opportunities, and I appreciate the map that the parks person put up earlier with regard to where play fields and ball fields are. I just want to point out that the DCR facility has an indoor turf field that's been used for indoor soccer. And I think that they even have some capacity over there for programming. Also down the street at the Roxbury YMCA, they put in a very nice soccer field not too long ago that I think is very underutilized. And I realize that's not a Boston space, nor is DCR a Boston space, but I think you have to take under consideration the utilization of all spaces in the area that are accommodating the many different opportunities for young people and others. And I certainly appreciate the comment around the seniors, and we'd have to come up with a solution for that. But I want to just reiterate that I think that we should be conscious of other spaces in the community that offer these opportunities for kids to play soccer. But we also should maintain something that I think has been a part of the community and offers not just young people and old people, but people in between opportunity to do what they do as well. And I think in terms of safety, that's a different issue. So from my perspective and being a resident and using the park all the time, I think that the ball field should have been something that we had a deeper dialogue about and really considered the implications of removing that and taking away something that's been a part of the park system there for such a long time. And so I would just advocate that we look at the other spaces around it, the DCR and the Y field, as opportunities to utilize that and maintain what we have. And I'll stop there.
Mike, it was nice seeing you and hearing you. Haven't talked to you in a long time. This is Alfreda Harris.
Yes,
In
ma'am.
regards to the soccer field at the YMCA, I believe that's a private field. And there are certain people who use it, but I don't even really know who uses it, but it's a private field. As far as inside the DCR having turf to play soccer on, I've never heard of that. And I'm not sure that that's accurate. It may be, Mike, don't get me wrong.
No, I've
but-
actually seen them go in there and do that.
But it's
Well, I
not
know they
turf.
go in there and
Harris.
play
It's
soccer,
not
but I
turf,
don't know
though.
if they play on any grass or any
It's
turf.
not an indoor turf field. It's just an open space within
Right.
the DCR.
Right.
Right. So
Thank you.
I've seen them play soccer in there. They have soccer nets. I'm just saying it's an option. And my point
Mhm.
about the Y is it's a community space. The Y is a community organization.
Yeah, but
And
you
I
gotta
would think-
pay. You gotta
I
pay.
would- Okay.
But
I
the
appreciate
Y you
that,
have
but-
to
but
rent.
Any soccer leagues or any baseball leagues run at the park, there's usually some fees associated with that, Ms. Harris, as well. I'm just saying.
Well, if there's softball money, we don't know nothing about it.
I
But
will
anyway,
say
Mike,
this.
nice talking
But
to
I
you.
don't really want to debate one-on-one. I just wanted to
No, I
add my
hear you.
comments, and I appreciate you, Ms. Harris, as you know, and I respect everything that we're all trying to do here.
Right.
Sorry
Right,
about
right.
the echo.
Love you too, Mike.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Mike. We've got one other person that has their hand raised, right? Chevanice, is that you that's there from Roxbury Youth Soccer?
Yes, Lauren.
Okay. You've got your hand raised. Did you still have a comment?
I mean, I just want to add, like we said, we support all sports. We don't want to see anything go away, but we also want to make sure that it's pretty much sustainable for the whole community. I understand every point, and for every point made, there's many sports within a mile radius of this field that offer all the same sports. But in Roxbury, there really is no soccer field. It is one of the many reasons we have pushed for it. There really is not one available only soccer field in the Roxbury community. We are, like I said, we're open to any ideas. It could be soccer, football, it can be anything. We love sports. We want to see all sports played. We want to see the whole community be able to get involved. I'm not against baseball or softball. I just would rather see anything else not paired with soccer, unfortunately. It's a difficult time for us even now with the permit, having to explain to kids that want to use the baseball field that they can't do pop-ups, or our parents are afraid that a ball is going to come down and hit them. I've also coached for South End, I've coached for Roxbury, and I've done the dual of being on the soccer field at English while they're actually playing baseball. And it is not a fun combination.
Yes.
If we can do something similar to South End, if we can do something similar where there's netting like the new Columbus Ave field, or there's actual protection, maybe then it's a conversation. But sharing the field with baseball right now, if this is going to go forward with soccer, is a very difficult thing if we can't come up with a really good permitting system or a respect community system. Because when we come on the field, we have to clean up. We have to get a whole field ready for kids. So that's all I really want to say, is that yes, we're a soccer league. We want to do whatever's best for the community. We've had our, own previous issues in the past, and it's not just with one group or anything. We just want the field to be available for the community in the state that we leave it, and show up for that same state for the kids to actually enjoy it, especially when we're servicing kids ages 3 to 10 and mostly families.
Thank you. And one of the other things that I didn't mention earlier that we had heard, and I think it's both Roxbury Youth Soccer and Boston Scores, both work with the local schools and do after-school programming for the kids at the field as well. So that's one of the things that we're also looking at in terms of soccer usage as well. And it looks like Carlos has his hand raised, and so does Chief White Hammond. Chief, did you have something quickly to say that we want to throw in there?
Oh, Carlos raised his hand before me, so he should go and then I'll go after.
Okay.
Hello, people. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. Thank you, Carlos.
I heard what everybody was saying, and I agree with most of it. With the loud music, we need to understand one thing. As a softball player, I've been playing there for about 20 years now. And my kids basically are racing in that park. We used to go to other parks. They've been fixed now. Some of those parks right there that I went with my kids to play baseball with them. I also was a coach for kids. Baseball little leagues, and I went to Jamaica Plain, a couple of years ago, and because they didn't have the permit for there, they took me out of the park. And probably I said something over here, people want to think it's about racism, it's about stuff like that. Well, there's some privilege to people. They get the permit before we do. And those parks, they are already been fixed. This Saturday, when I went to the park, I don't know if this lady that lives across the street from the park remember me. She's in the meeting right now. When I got to the park right there, they was bringing a porta potty to the park, to the field. She came outside right away, really hostile, talking with the F word and stuff like that. And I say, hello, good morning. How you doing today? But she was pretty mad already, without anything happening in the park yet. She was complaining about the porta potty when it was bringing to the park. If you wanna say something to us, just come to us. Like talking, we fix everything. In that park, in that field, since I've been there, nothing ever happened there. Nothing ever happened in there. I would not mention all the stuff that happened in the other side because of Jose told me not to bring it up. But since I've been in the park playing ball for the last 20 years, and anybody that know that lives around there know me because I know a lot of people that live in the neighborhood. And I have to move from around the area because my son also was murdered by a gang member on that neighborhood. That field right there, it means a lot to me. My nephew also got autism, and I bring my nephew to that park so he can run and play there. So also people that been in this park, in this field with us, that has passed away. I don't know if you guys see a plaque there's on the field, on the left field. It's a plaque there. We names the people that have been playing there, they have passed away. That park means a lot to us. And about the music, about the loud music, it's a problem that we've been having in Boston, all over the city. We are close Field Street right now, Franklin Park, all those streets, motorcycle around all over the place. It brings problems in the other side of the park. I haven't heard nobody mention those problems because the people been shot there in that park in the other side. I haven't heard nothing from there. Police go over there from time to time. I heard somebody say the police don't go over there when they don't call police be in the park. Most of the time they be in the center field, motorcycles. We got detectives over there. We got also cruises over there. They can be there the whole day. I don't blame them. City is big, About the citizen, senior citizen that live there. I can't apologize for myself, and I'm sorry for what happened in there. But I can't say anything after we leave because it's a public place. A lot of people go over there and do that stuff over there. We fight with them. We tell them listen, you can't have this over here. That's why the gate is closed. When I got there on Saturday, there was people there. There was already drinking early in the morning. It's not from the league from us. People that live on the neighborhood. They was in the park and they've been there all the time doing their stuff. We cannot say anything because they live around there. I have no control over what happened in the park. Same way the police have no control over what happened in the city with the motorcycles and everything else. I apologize for what happened after we leave the park. After that, it's not us. That's why Jose say the police need to get in there. And they go over there. We can't do anything about afterwards. When I'm done playing, I go home. I bring my kids with me home. And everybody's out of the park. There's nothing that I can do about it. Why are I gonna pay for someone else's mistake? Why? Us as a player that we've been there, me myself been there for 20 years. So why now all of a sudden we're gonna have a kickball, which I never see any Latino or any Afro-American playing that game. This is Malcolm X Park. And this is also a sport field. We've been talking about pictures and stuff like that. The picture that should have been in the park is a picture from baseball players like Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, players that have helped to become better for us, make it for us. Like Willie Mays make Black players and Spanish players to make it in the major leagues. Mm-hmm. So, we need players like that, pictures like that with those players over there. I know there's no soccer field in that part of Roseberry, but they got soccer fields right there on Jamaica Plain, on English High, soccer field right there on Broadway Street. For the last 20 years, they've been pushing the softball fields out of the city. So next we're gonna end up playing where? On the river. We also pay taxes and we voters also. So the same way that you feel comfortable. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
So can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
When this is Andrea again. Excuse me, Reverend Mariama. I don't mean to cut you off. When I came out my yard, you're referring to me. I did not swear. And the reason why I was angry is because the first porta potty that was there got knocked over all weekend. And the next time the guy came, I asked him if he could move it further down. That's the blue one. And he moved it. When you was there, he was getting ready, the same guy was getting ready to put another one in the same spot it got knocked down from. And that's why I said, hey, hey. And you ended up saying something in Spanish and he turned around.
Excuse me, ma'am.
So I didn't swear, and I did have an attitude because it keeps getting knocked over and it was stinking.
And I don't want to make this a debate between you.
And I'm not prejudiced or racist and all that. My grandbabies are half Spanish. It's not about that. It's just about the noise, everything. I don't know how you don't hear it. I don't know how you say none of the players are drinking. Yes, they are.
That blue property that you mentioned, somebody's doing bad for you. That property that you mentioned is the blue one. It's not us. If you really pay attention to this, we just got hours. At the same time you come out from your house. I don't know if you remember, the guy in the truck was bringing it down. And you came outside and say, these effing idiots don't understand. Okay? I'm not gonna put something in your mouth. You didn't say. God knows that I'm not lying to you. Okay? If you remember, I do. That's why I say in Spanish, can you guys move the bathroom a little bit further down? Because it's gonna bother the people on the neighborhood. That's what
I did not swear at him.
So, sorry to jump in. It sounds like if we could move on from this and if White Hammond could speak.
Hello, Lauren. Can I
Everybody
say something?
Everybody mute first.
Hello, Lauren.
We're talking over each other, guys.
Okay, everyone, if we could please keep muted until we're called on, it'll help with all of the feedback. I know that Chief White Hammond wanted to speak next.
So I just want to name. I think there's an iPhone. Okay, there we go. It sounds like there's a number of issues that are all being connected to each other, but they're not necessarily all the same. So there's a question about what people want to do and what usage makes the most sense in the space. There's a history of there being softball there. Lots of people have talked about it in the past, and softball there now. There is also another layer around the party atmosphere that is sometimes connected to the softball game, but can go before it and can keep going after it. It is a challenge where this is not the only place where that is a challenge. So I guess one of my questions, and I heard, and I've heard from multiple folks, the attempt to shut down the parking lot as a way of, reducing the number of people that are there. I'm getting the sense that has not seemed to work enough. I will say this. So my department is also responsible for noise and noise complaints. One of the things I think we should consider is the level at which people are projecting sound is actually illegal. It's like you are not allowed to play music anywhere in the city in an open space at that decibel. And so one of the conversations might be maybe we make that clear to people and then cite folks' cars. The reality is, the truth is, back in the day, you couldn't even get that level of speaker in a car. So even if people were playing their music loud, these days you have cars that have the kind of speakers that you used to be able to only get in a club because they were so big. And as the speakers have gotten smaller and smaller, you can get a lot of sound from the back of a car. But it sounds like, I'm not saying that the music is the only problem, but it is also a challenge we're having in Franklin Park. And it seems to me, I do know, because we also have noise management within our office, that level of projection is illegal. And maybe one of the solutions is to just document and go after the people with the sound. That might reduce some of the challenge, because what I'm hearing is that is not the only challenge, but a core part of the issue. It still doesn't answer the question of what uses do we want in the park. I'm hearing some folks saying we have a lot of softball fields, some folks saying the number of softball fields has been going down. I am interested to know, how used are these other softball fields? Are there extra hours even available in those places, or are they all used up and we still need more capacity? I do also want to raise, I live not that far from one of the few soccer fields in the city. And we also have the same issue with no sound there. Once everybody gets there and somebody shows up with a car that's like projecting the sound. And so it seems to me one of the issues is, let's just deal with the sound issue. I also hear the concern raised about the state of the field. I'm trying to understand if it's the folks that come to listen to the music and party, or the actual folks that are there to see the game that are leaving a lot of the trash. I get that's a real issue. What do we begin to do about that? Because it sounds like we've got a challenge, and what we're looking for as an answer is to just get rid of the field. But I guess what I'm saying is, I live not that far from a soccer field where the same challenges exist. And so I'm concerned that if we don't address those challenges, they may just show up in an adult soccer league with the same issues. And can we find a way to separate the sort of party atmosphere, the bottles and the drinking and the being there late into the night, and the playing of sports, and people being able to recreate? It seems like they're being inherently pushed together. Maybe there's a way to address one without having to completely eliminate the other.
Thank you. I know that we are running later than we had thought, but I want to be respectful of that. But I also know there are some other people that have their hands raised. Chief, do you have time to continue, or?
So I could stay until 8:30, but I want to suggest that I'm not sure this fully gets resolved tonight. I think what's happened is that people have aired where they are. That's important. There seems like there's a couple of issues that we need to understand what options exist. For instance, is there a way to have a soccer field and a softball field? Is that a possibility? Has that been explored? And then I do think these questions about how to handle sound, quite frankly, Commissioner Woods and I are going to be on a call tomorrow where these same exact challenges are being raised in another park. And I'm willing to spend some time thinking creatively. How do we address the party atmosphere without assuming that it has to be and has to accompany the recreation use?
Well, to answer your question about can there be overlapping uses, the softball and the soccer can overlap, where what we've already designed with the circulation loop that we were talking about with that the older residents had requested and the seniors, as well as the exercise equipment, those would all fit as well if we had both. The only thing that really would change is the type of fencing and the location of the fencing, depending on the sport. And that the soccer goals that we are currently proposing, if it were soccer only, are fixed goals. Whereas if it was soccer overlapping, we would switch those to movable goals.
Can I say something? Hello?
Hi.
Hi, my name is Louis Pagan. Sorry to basically, I've been here a while and I'm sorry to be late. I'm Louis Pagan. I am the owner, founder of the United Softball League of Boston, and also the National Youth Baseball League of Boston, and also the National Christian League of Boston. I've been basically been a permit holder since 2003 at Malcolm X Park. I basically heard, a lot of complaints, and I'm sure that I understand all the issues that we have in our park for years about drinking, about smoking in the park, loud music, et cetera, trash in the parks, which basically I communicate hand in hand with the Commissioner of Park Recreation, which is Paul McCaffrey. And I just think that I don't know how many soccer fields we're going to basically build, because I know for a fact that we used to play years ago in the Columbus Park, which is right by Northeastern University. They took that park away and built a soccer field there. And then they also basically built a soccer field in Jamaica Plain, where English High School is. Oh. And now, I disagreed of building a soccer field in Malcolm X. I just think that the softball, we should keep the softball fields there, because we got baseball leagues there. And by putting a soccer field there, it's going to create a lot of situation. Also, I think they built another soccer field over in Roberts Field, where Dorchester High used to be. So I don't know how many soccer fields we're going to build in our city, because we have enough. And I just think that we should, they're taking away the softball fields and the baseball parks, and that's not good.
I think we got more baseball and softball fields than soccer fields.
No,
Yes, we
negative.com.
Can I chime in?
Can everyone?
I disagree with you. Okay.
Everyone,
You're right, Diane.
Reverend Mariama, Chief,
Hello?
the soccer field at English High is extremely overused.
Yes.
It's always full, every day, every evening.
Okay.
The field that we're the turf that we're talking about at Malcolm X is not only for soccer. Okay, you can play volleyball on that. You can play pickleball.
I disagree.
There's, sir.
I disagree.
Let's not get into the arguments now. Let us speak now. Let us speak.
And my issue is, as I said, I was there when they built the Shelburne Center in 1972.
Okay.
And yes, there's been a lot of softball leagues there.
Yeah.
Okay. Originally, we had a really nice men and women softball league that lasted for years. Okay.
Okay.
I don't care whether you're white, black, green, yellow, Spanish, whatever.
Okay,
that's not the issue. The
Yes,
issue is the quality of life for the people who live in St. Joseph's, for the folks who use the Shelburne Community Center, okay, and the folks who live there. That's the issue. Now, as my understanding is, and I may be wrong because maybe they change the rules from time to time, I don't know, but young people, children, I understand, have preference when it comes to usage of these parks that belong to the city of Boston. I might be wrong. Maybe the commission can answer that question, but I know that's the way it used to be. So in terms of people arguing about this one or that one, let's think about the people that live there. Let's think about the Shelburne Community Center. Let's think about the people who live on Washington Street. Let's think about the seniors who want to come out to the park and walk around a track and sit down on a bench and maybe drink some water or whatever, who have there's no other place for them to do that in the park. So it's not a matter of kicking out the softball league. There are other softball fields in the city, just as you say there are other soccer leagues and fields in the city. Look at softball. I'm sure the park department has a field who would be able to accommodate them that is not in a residential district, a crosswalk away from where people live.
Well, we pay. Well, what about
I pay taxes too, so don't even go there.
Well, okay then. So what are you trying to say?
Don't
I've
go
been
there.
playing there. I've been playing there for over 25 years.
I've been
Okay,
there for
I've been a player.
52
Have you
years.
heard-
Okay.
I've been there
Okay,
for
so what's your
52
point?
I
years.
think
So
without
why take away? Why take away soccer? Why
pause.
put the
Let's just
pressure over
pause
there?
because this is no longer
Okay.
productive.
I don't
Just
think we need
because
to
you've been there a long
argue.
time
We're
doesn't
gonna-
mean
So this is not productive when we're yelling at each other. The reality is,
we're not
this
yelling.
park-
I'm just
hold
saying.
on, I
I'm
need
just
you to
proving a
stop. I
point.
need you to stop. Hold
Okay.
on.
Mute him.
Here's the point. Everybody wants to use this space. That's the whole point, is that the park needs to serve a lot of people. The challenge is, and I would be interested to know, how many soccer fields do we have in the city versus how many softball fields we have? That's a question we should ask and get an actual answer on that.
Well,
So,
go over there.
hold on.
There's enough soccer
Let me
fields.
ask,
Why Malcolm X?
we're not going to finish this conversation tonight.
Why Malcolm X?
Brother, here we go. I'm trying to be
Why
with
Malcolm
you,
X?
but
There's enough
here's the
soccer
thing.
fields. There's
You
enough
hear
soccer.
me out. I'm trying to hear you, but I'm asking us to respect how we
You're
engage.
disrespecting me by muting me. Okay?
Because it got to a point where
It is to get a point, because you know why? You guys want to take over the city, like, it's okay. How many soccer fields you guys gonna build? There's enough soccer fields for them to go there.
At this point, you're
Okay.
really being
This is
disrespectful, and you're
this
not
is
even
not
being
listening to
disrespectful.
nobody
I'm just
else.
proving a
But you're
point.
being
There's a difference
disrespectful.
between a disrespectful
You can make a
and
point
proving a
without
point.
being
you have raised
disrespectful.
an issue, and let's
It's
get a
not
real
an issue.
answer.
You guys, this is the problem.
Pagan, can you please stop? This is what we're doing right now.
Yep,
This
he's
is-
Carlos, why don't you be quiet, bro? Seriously.
You
So
stop.
there's a question on the table that we can actually answer, not because people one thing or another. We can actually answer it. Can we we're not going to finish this tonight. It's very clear.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the question is, what is the balance of softball fields that we have to soccer fields that we have? I don't know the answer to that. And my guess is, sir, you don't either. We should actually figure out what the real answer to that is. I don't play soccer. That is
Okay,
true.
then.
I also recognize it is the most
So why
popular
take away
sport.
baseball field from
It
the
is
kids?
the most popular
Can I
sport
ask a
in the
question?
world. I do know that too. I know that in my neighborhood, where the soccer field is, it's used all day, all night. That's one of the
Yeah.
tensions, is how
It's all
often.
about a racial thing here.
So I guess
Am I
what I
able to
want
ask
to
a
know
question?
is, if
Let's
there's a
hang up.
question,
Let's hang up.
to answer that question, we can get some real information and we can use that information.
Hello, can
It's
I
a
be
racial
heard?
thing here.
Hang up.
Hello, can I be heard? Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead and ask the question, and then we're going to begin figuring out how we get to the next step. But go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to introduce myself. I grew up in St. Joseph all my life. I'm now 41 years old. I've enjoyed that punk all my life. I enjoyed the Shelburne. How you doing, Miss Harris? All my life. I don't. The whole debate here is like everyone's talking over each other, so you're really not going to find a solution. I think the field is actually big enough to share all sports because they don't play in the same seasons. I mean, it really a no-brainer. Share the field. Soccer, baseball. The baseball field's been there for years since I was a child, so I have no problem with that. So, I kind of agree to disagree with some of the statements that's going on. The field's big enough to share all sports because they don't play in the same seasons. And with that, I yield the floor.
All right, so I think we're not going to finish tonight. We're 19 minutes past when we said we were going to be done.
Hello?
I want to get clear on some of the conversations that folks have raised. We do want to know there's a question been raised that there's more soccer fields than baseball fields or softball fields. I would love to know, what is the inventory of the city? We see here the inventory of Roxbury, I think, or some portion of Roxbury. That's not all of Roxbury, but some portion of Roxbury. It does appear from this that there are more softball fields than soccer fields. There's one soccer field at Madison Park. That being said, I do also think there's more than one use that can be possible. What seems to be the sticking point, though, is the question of how do we make sure that when recreation happens there, it happens in a way that's respectful of the residents in the neighborhood. Because if that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter if it's soccer or softball or basketball. If people who live around the park don't feel good, don't feel safe, don't feel respected, it doesn't matter what the sport is, that's going to be an issue. So a couple of things that I heard. One is that there is the possibility of using the field in multiple ways. But what we really need to figure out, and I think this is actually a collective conversation that the folks in this space have just as much power to deal with as a city. How do we make sure that regardless of what is in the space, that when the kids get there to use it on Monday, that is clean. When folks are in their homes, they can hear themselves. The autistic kids that live in the neighborhood are not undone by the level of sound. And I think we can have that conversation without pitting soccer versus softball. And then I think the question is, you know, if we can't get to a different place, what are the standards for what happens there? What happens if those standards are violated? Because what I'm hearing is there's both been people using this park for years, and there's also been people feeling disrespected for years. How do we change that dynamic? Which I think is more about how the surrounding situation happens to the playing in the field more than what is actually being played. Are folks open to a more focused conversation around how we deal with that? And I'm raising this because we're about to have the same conversation tomorrow in relation to Franklin Park. Same issues, just dirt bikes versus people walking in the park. Parties there too. We had to shut down the entire lane through Franklin Park in order to get the parties to stop. But we've got to find a different solution.
Can I just add to the topic of your focus conversation? The one thing I really didn't hear is accountability. I think that solves a lot of your issues. If you have a permit for the field, you should be taking accountability for the time you're out on the field. I think that goes a long way to a lot of these issues. And it's something, not to be funny, I really did not hear from everybody that uses the field. When we use the field, we clean the field. We make sure everybody leaves when we leave. I think that's part of being part of the community and using the field. Is taking accountability and responsibility for when you're using it and for the people that come with you.
Well, every single time I use my the field that I have permits, I never had an issue in my league. I don't know about other leagues, but my league always basically cleaned the field. I never had an issue with Paul McCaffrey. So I don't know why, you know.
And I know you. I've met you several times on the field. I know you don't see my face, but I've met you through the soccer league, so I can attest to that. What I think that may be the bigger issue is that there are so many softball leagues that maybe we just need to figure out how to communicate with each other. Because if you're taking accountability for your league and the other leagues aren't taking accountability, then all the fallback falls on all the leagues across the board.
Well, same way with soccer.
Chief, I want to respond to your question. You know, I don't play softball there. I am Latino. I don't play softball, but I live at the corner of the park, and I do walk through it every day with my child, wife, and our dog. I'd be glad to continue that conversation with my neighbors who are on this call and with organizations. And I just want to reiterate that and thank the person who just raised accountability. I think that's really going to be the key here, and constant communication, prioritizing, quite frankly, the people in St. Joe's who are the closest neighbors there who do deal with this park on a day-to-day basis. And I think a memorandum of understanding that would lay out processes for accountability, who's, who to go to for what, who are, a listing of who are our users, permitted users in the park, so people know who to call if they have a concern, access to schedules of permitting. So if a neighbor sees something they don't like, that they know who to reach out to, either, what soccer team to reach out to or what softball team to reach out to. I think the creation of some processes and clarity and pathways for communication would be helpful. And I think an MOU would assist that, and I'd be glad to assist in working on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think
Hello?
we should set another time because it's 8:26. And I know there are still folks wanting to weigh in. And I want to respect that we are nearing 30 minutes past what we said we would be done. I do think this question of accountability, of documenting, because if there are folks that are not causing problems, they should not be swept up with folks who are. And figuring out how we get clear on that. I think there's other little things like the issues around the porta potties that have been raised, and I think there's some conversations that could be even some conversations that began in the chat that we could keep going to get to greater clarity and get some agreement and get people on the same page to move forward. So what I want to suggest is, are folks willing to come back for a conversation a week from now? That will give a little bit of time to put some things together, get some answers to some questions, and then really drill down on what will accountability look like. Because I'll just be honest with you, just changing out what one sport to another will not necessarily shift it if we don't have some agreements about what it means to get a permit, what we're asking people to do, how we're asking people to clean things up, how we're documenting who's doing what they said they were going to do, who's not doing what they said they were going to do. And then folks who don't do what they said they're going to do need to lose their permits. So I think, would folks be willing to come back in a week and begin and drill down with some specificity on the conversations that have been started tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
I would be.
Yes.
And could I
Yes.
suggest that I don't have the contact information for everyone on this Zoom. Could I request that if people could send me in the chat or give me their email addresses, I can make sure that once that's set up, that we send that to everyone.
Okay.
Can folks agree? So if you want to make sure you are invited to that next meeting, please put your email or phone number in a text phone number in the chat so that we can get back to you. This is also Lauren's email if you want to write that down and reach out to her that way. But if you want to make sure that you know when the meeting is, please go ahead and share your contact information. I know this is a tense conversation. I think on the whole, people did mostly well. We had some places where we had a tough time. We'll get started next week or with some agreements about how we're going to do this, how we're going to share time together, and how we're going to move forward. And we'll hone in on the key issues that people have raised so we can come to some agreements. I do know that there was a list that there are guidelines that are already accessible on the city's website. We'll go ahead and review those and then figure out the questions of, are there things that are missing from that we also, that are happening, that are a problem? And then what are the agreements around accountability? It sounds like when people permit, maybe there's a need in this coming year and in the future to sort of have a clear conversation with folks to make sure they're very clear about it and what the consequences will be. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for being in this call. I know that today, for many of us, is a challenging day, challenging anniversary. I hope that folks have some time and space to be with family tonight, relax, and we will come back to this very important conversation and get to a place of agreement and alignment around how to move forward.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Night, guys.
Thank you.